At exactly 1400 UTC, something happened that may have quietly ended the world as we understood it. For 4 centuries, the laws of motion have stood unchallenged, guiding planets, comets, and spacecraft with mathematical certainty. But in a single moment, that foundation cracked. The Deep Space Network's Goldstone antenna confirmed a signal separation from 3I Atlas that carries a 0% probability of being a natural event. A mountain of interstellar rock did not simply fracture. It opened, and from within it, a 400,000-ton metallic sphere deployed and accelerated without any visible exhaust. That is not a comet behaving strangely. That is the arrival of a technological signature consistent with a Type II civilization. For months, 3I Atlas was tracked as a rough, tumbling fragment from deep space. Its motion followed the predictable pull of the sun's gravity, exactly as Newton's first law describes. An object in motion remains in motion unless acted upon by an external force. There was no mystery, no deviation, just the silent glide of cosmic debris. But at 1400 UTC, that harmony ended. Instead of exploding into gas and dust like natural comets do through violent sublimation, 3I Atlas underwent a clean, silent separation. Data from the James Webb Space Telescope confirmed what no one expected. As the metallic sphere emerged, there was no debris field, no thermal bloom, no expanding cloud of dust. The NIRCam instrument recorded its surface temperature at near absolute zero, colder than the surrounding vacuum. A separation event of that scale should have generated friction-based heat. It did not. The only logical explanation is a frictionless deployment system, perhaps magnetic rail technology or an advanced quantum coupling mechanism capable of masking thermal output entirely. Through the theoretical lens often associated with Michio Kaku's framework of advanced civilizations, we are forced to consider metric engineering. At 1415 UTC, telemetry from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory showed the impossible. The sphere increased its velocity from 34 kilometers per second to 46 kilometers per second in just 18 seconds. Achieving that change in speed using chemical propulsion would require fuel tanks the size of skyscrapers. Yet there was no exhaust plume, no infrared signature, nothing. This aligns disturbingly well with the theoretical Alcubierre warp metric, where an object does not move through space but instead contracts space ahead of it and expands space behind it. In that scenario, inertia is not overcome, it is bypassed. The sphere was not fighting physics, it was manipulating it. 2 minutes later, at 1417 UTC, the object performed what analysts now call the dog-leg maneuver. Traveling at nearly 100,000 miles per hour, it executed a sharp 1/8-degree course correction without slowing down or banking. The estimated forces exceeded 400 Gs. Modern aerospace materials would fail at a quarter of that stress. Even solid rock would disintegrate. Yet radar returns from Goldstone showed a mathematically perfect sphere, polished within fractions of a millimeter. This suggests a material with tensile strength beyond diamond and the presence of inertial dampening technology capable of canceling destructive acceleration forces. When researchers at the European Space Agency and NASA plotted the new trajectory, initial skepticism turned into silence. The sphere was not drifting, it was aiming. Its destination was precise. The Earth-Sun L1 Lagrange point, located 1.5 million kilometers from Earth. In orbital mechanics, L1 is a gravitational balance zone where an object can hover with a permanent, uninterrupted view of Earth's daylight side. Comets do not plan insertion burns. Nature does not choose observation posts. And yet, that is exactly where the sphere is heading. The deeper we examine this object, now designated object beta, the more unsettling the evidence becomes. Density calculations based on gravitational perturbations to 3I, Atlas estimate that this 10-meter sphere weighs roughly 400,000 tons. That level of mass compressed into such a small volume approaches the density of degenerate matter found in stellar remnants. And yet, despite this extraordinary weight, the sphere moves as if it were nearly massless. This contradiction points toward a system that uses its own concentrated mass to generate a localized gravity well. Instead of burning fuel, it may be reshaping space-time around itself. We are not observing propulsion in the conventional sense. We are watching a live demonstration of general relativity under controlled manipulation. As the sphere approached L1, it aligned its rotational axis to within 0.04 degrees directly toward Earth. That precision is not accidental. The maneuver was flawless. The activation phase was complete. The question shifted from what happened to what happens next. To understand the reaction inside the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, we must revisit the second law of thermodynamics. In our universe, order decays into disorder. When a fragment breaks from a comet, it tumbles and disperses energy chaotically. Object beta is doing the opposite. It is increasing internal order while reducing entropy in its immediate environment. The James Webb Space Telescope confirmed that the sphere's surface is composed of refined osmium, the densest naturally occurring element on Earth. Osmium is rare, usually found in trace amounts within asteroid debris. Discovering a perfectly polished 10-meter sphere of pure osmium in deep space is equivalent to finding a precision-engineered watch buried in an empty desert. It cannot be explained by natural processes. Even more revealing is its albedo signature. Most comets reflect about 4% of incoming light. They are darker than charcoal. Object beta reflects 99.9%. Achieving that level of reflectivity requires atomic-level surface polishing. Simulations suggest this is not simply a metal shell. It behaves like a metamaterial shield, reflecting not only visible light, but large portions of the electromagnetic spectrum. This explains why the Goldstone antenna temporarily lost tracking during the acceleration phase. The object did not disappear. It achieved electromagnetic cloaking by bending radar waves around its curved geometry, a concept known in theoretical physics as optical transformation. But the most disturbing data came from Antarctica. As the sphere settled near L1, the IceCube Neutrino Observatory detected a focused burst of high-energy neutrinos originating from its core. Neutrinos are extremely weakly interacting particles, typically produced in nuclear fusion or supernova events. To generate a directed beam of them requires an energy source comparable to stellar output condensed into a 10-meter structure. This strongly implies the presence of a Type II antimatter reactor. If correct, the sphere is not just an observer, it is a mobile power plant capable of accelerating 400,000 tons to relativistic speeds. As it passed within 1.5 million kilometers of Earth, gravitational sensors aboard the Grace follow-on satellites recorded a measurable fluctuation. The sphere's gravity briefly tugged at Earth's mantle. Instead of using rockets, it appears to steer by interacting directly with the gravitational fields of Earth and the Sun, locking itself into L1 like a parking brake embedded in spacetime itself. Now, stabilized at this cosmic vantage point, Object Beta has an uninterrupted view of our planet's daylight hemisphere. It can monitor every satellite launch, every radio transmission, every nuclear signature. And 5 minutes ago, the Green Bank telescope confirmed something even more chilling. The sphere did not attempt to contact Earth. Instead, it aimed a directed neutrino burst toward the Cygnus constellation. It is not speaking to us. It is reporting on us. The moment the data from the Green Bank telescope was verified, the atmosphere inside control rooms across the world changed. Until then, there was still room for doubt, for alternative explanations, for the hope that this metallic sphere was some rare but natural anomaly. That hope ended when the neutrino burst was traced. It was not random radiation, it was a directed, modulated transmission aimed with microscopic precision toward the Cygnus constellation, specifically toward the coordinates of KIC 8462852, widely known as Tabby's star. The targeting accuracy measured at 0.000001 arcseconds. That is not cosmic coincidence. That is intention. Tabby's star has long puzzled astronomers because of its unusual dimming patterns. Some theoretical models have suggested the possibility of large-scale structures, perhaps even a partially constructed Dyson swarm orbiting the star. Those ideas were always considered speculative. But now, with object beta transmitting in that direction, speculation has shifted into active investigation. If this sphere originated from the Cygnus region, then 3I, Atlas, was not a comet at all. It was a delivery system, a Trojan horse carrying a compact, high-density observer into our solar system without triggering alarm until deployment was complete. The scale of technological mastery implied by neutrino communication is difficult to overstate. In particle physics, neutrinos interact so weakly with matter that trillions pass through your body every second without leaving a trace. To generate and modulate a focused beam for data transmission requires control over the weak nuclear force itself. That places this intelligence at the upper edge of the Kardashev scale, consistent with a civilization capable of harnessing the total energy output of a star. The sphere's position at the Earth-Sun L1 point now makes strategic sense. In orbital mechanics, L1 is unique. From that location, an object can maintain a constant view of Earth's daylight side while preserving an unobstructed line of sight to deep space. It is the ultimate observation deck. By parking there, object beta has created a permanent surveillance post and a hyperspatial relay. It can observe our electromagnetic emissions, track our orbital assets, and now transmit its findings outward. But the data becomes even more disturbing when we examine what the European Space Agency's Gaia spacecraft detected shortly after the neutrino burst. A gravitational fluctuation originated from L1, according to general relativity, mass curves, spacetime. A 400,000-ton object should not create a measurable planetary scale anomaly, yet Gaia recorded rhythmic pulses matching the 1-1 second intervals first identified during the acceleration phase. This suggests gravitational wave modulation. The sphere is not only transmitting neutrinos, it is manipulating spacetime itself to encode information. The Earth may be functioning as a resonator, amplifying the signal as it propagates outward. In other words, our planet is being used as part of the transmission system. When we consider the Fermi paradox, the question of why we have not observed extraterrestrial intelligence, the answer may now be clear. They were never silent. They were simply communicating in ways we were not advanced enough to detect. And more importantly, they were not attempting to talk to us directly. They were observing and reporting. Object Beta has completed its insertion and activated its monitoring protocol. Its polished osmium surface reflects nearly all incoming radiation, shielding its internal systems while acting as an optical transformation cloak. It sees everything we broadcast, every signal we leak into space. Our secrecy means nothing against neutrino detection. We are no longer isolated observers scanning the sky for distant life. We are the observed, and as the steady stream of neutrino pulses continues towards Cygnus, one reality becomes unavoidable. A message is traveling across 1,400 light-years of space. Under conventional physics, that message would take 1,400 years to arrive at its destination. Any response would require another 1,400 years to return. Nearly 3 millennia would pass before we heard anything back. But that assumption depends on limits we are no longer certain apply. If a civilization can manipulate space-time the way object beta has demonstrated, folding or warping distance may be routine. The response time could be measured in moments rather than centuries. This possibility changes the entire timeline of human history. We are no longer speculating about extraterrestrial life in abstract terms. We are operating inside a monitored system. The metallic sphere at L1 is not drifting. It is stationed. It is calibrated. It is watching. The Sentinel hypothesis, once a theoretical model in astrobiology, now feels disturbingly practical. Instead of launching fleets across galaxies, an advanced civilization would deploy autonomous probes, self-sustaining machines, capable of long-term observation. They would position them at gravitationally stable points near emerging technological worlds. They would wait, they would record, and when the time was right, they would transmit their assessment. Object Beta fits that model precisely. It did not approach Earth directly. It did not announce itself. It embedded within 3I, Atlas, concealed until proximity made detection unavoidable. It executed a flawless separation, performed propulsion maneuvers beyond known engineering limits, and positioned itself at the most strategic vantage point in our solar system. Then it reported. 5 minutes after the initial neutrino burst, the Green Bank telescope intercepted a secondary modulation pattern. The signal structure does not resemble natural cosmic noise. It carries repetition, symmetry, and encoded intervals. Every encryption system on Earth relies on the assumption that information transmission can be contained or shielded. Neutrino communication renders that assumption obsolete. These particles pass through oceans, continents, and reinforced bunkers as if they are transparent. The IceCube Observatory confirmed sustained emission from the sphere's core. The energy levels remain stable, consistent with a controlled antimatter reaction. This is not a temporary broadcast. It is an active channel. Meanwhile, gravitational sensors continue to record subtle pulses from L1. The rhythmic mass fluctuation suggests that object beta can alter its effective density. It is not just sitting in orbit. It is actively tuning its interaction with spacetime, possibly maintaining alignment with distant coordinates far beyond our solar system. The broader implication is clear. If we apply the Kardashev framework, Earth is not yet a Type 1 civilization. We do not harness the full energy output of our planet. Theoretical models have suggested that once a world approaches that threshold, it becomes detectable to advanced observers. Our industrial emissions, radio waves, and nuclear signatures may have functioned as a beacon. The arrival of 3I, Atlas, was not random. It was scheduled. As object beta remains fixed at L1, aligned precisely toward Earth, its presence creates what can only be described as an observational shadow. It never blinks. It never sleeps. It reflects our technological infancy back at us with perfect clarity. For centuries, humanity looked to the stars wondering if anyone was out there. Now we must confront a harder truth. Someone may have been watching the entire time, and if the transmission to Cygnus has been received, the next phase may already be in motion. The realization did not arrive with panic. It arrived with silence. Inside observatories and research facilities around the world, conversation slowed as one conclusion became unavoidable. Object beta is not an accident of physics. It is an instrument, and instruments are built with purpose. As it maintains its precise station at the Earth-Sun L1 point, the sphere continues to exhibit behavior that defies passive observation. The rhythmic gravitational pulses detected earlier have stabilized into a steady sequence, repeating every 11 seconds. According to data from the European Space Agency's Gaia spacecraft, the curvature fluctuation is small but deliberate. In general relativity, even tiny distortions in spacetime require enormous energy. A 400,000-ton object should not be capable of producing measurable planetary scale effects. Yet the readings remain consistent. This suggests that object beta is not merely transmitting data outward, it may be interacting with Earth itself. Some theoretical models now propose that the planet is functioning as a resonant amplifier, with its core subtly responding to the sphere's gravitational modulation. In practical terms, that means our world could be part of the communication system. At the same time, the IceCube Neutrino Observatory confirms sustained high-energy emissions from the sphere's interior. The modulation patterns are structured, layered, and complex. This is not a simple status update. It resembles compressed data. The level of control required to encode information into a neutrino beam implies mastery over particle physics that far exceeds our own capabilities. On the Kardashev scale, such control aligns with a civilization that commands stellar energy as a routine resource. Meanwhile, optical analysis of the sphere's surface continues to challenge accepted material science. The refined osmium shell reflects nearly the entire electromagnetic spectrum. It does not absorb heat in any measurable way. Its albedo remains at 99.9%. This makes it almost perfectly invisible to traditional radar tracking, except during brief moments when its gravitational signature betrays its position. The earlier 3-minute loss of radar lock at Goldstone was not a glitch. It was a demonstration of cloaking through optical transformation, bending incoming waves around its geometry. If this is a Sentinel probe, then its capabilities are defensive as well as observational. It is shielded, powered, and strategically placed. From L1, it has a continuous view of Earth's daylight hemisphere. Every satellite launch, every atmospheric test, every electromagnetic leak is visible. Our communications infrastructure radiates into space, and object beta sits at the gravitational high ground to receive it. This context reframes the Fermi paradox in a stark way. The question has always been why we have not detected advanced civilizations. The answer may be that detection is one-directional. They detect us, they catalog us, they evaluate our technological maturity long before we are aware of their presence. The data timeline suggests that 3I, Atlas, entered our solar system months ago, embedding the sphere within its mass to avoid immediate classification as artificial. Only upon reaching optimal proximity did the deployment sequence begin. The acceleration, the course correction exceeding 400 Gs, the insertion at L1, and the directed neutrino burst towards Cygnus were not improvisations. They were steps in a predefined protocol, and that protocol appears complete. Object beta has parked itself. It has transmitted its report. It remains active, which means the only variable left is response. The final layer of analysis forces humanity into unfamiliar territory. If the neutrino transmission toward the Cygnus constellation, specifically toward the coordinates of Kik 84628552, Tabby star has reached its destination, then two timelines now exist. One follows conventional physics, where 1,400 light-years of separation guarantees centuries of delay. The other considers what object beta has already demonstrated, the manipulation of space-time itself. If warp metrics or folded geometries are within the technological toolkit of its creators, distance may not be the barrier we assume it to be. The response, if one is coming, may not wait 3 millennia. It could arrive without warning. As of this moment, Earth exists inside a monitored framework. The sphere at L1 is stable, silent, and aligned to within 0.04 degrees directly toward our planet. Its antimatter class energy source remains steady. Its gravitational pulses continue. Its reflective shell shields it from traditional interference. Every attempt to classify it as natural has failed. Through the theoretical lens often associated with advanced civilization modeling, this event represents more than first contact. It represents assessment. We are not facing an invasion scenario. There are no fleets, no visible threats. Instead, there is observation at a scale and precision that reduces our most secure systems to transparency. Neutrinos pass through lead as though it were air. That fact alone renders the concept of secrecy obsolete in the face of such technology. Underground bunkers, encrypted transmissions, hidden facilities, none are hidden to a system that can read planetary emissions and gravitational fluctuations directly. The deeper philosophical impact may be greater than the physical one. For centuries, humanity assumed that the silence of the cosmos meant solitude. Now we must consider that the silence was simply a limit of our instruments. The universe was active, and we were not yet capable of hearing it. The 3 billion ton mass of 3I Atlas-breaking formation was not a natural accident. The 400,000-ton osmium sphere breaking the expectations of thermodynamics was not a glitch in our equations. The directed neutrino beam, breaking every model of secure communication, was not theoretical speculation. Each step marked a boundary crossed. We stand at the edge of what many scientists describe as the Great Filter, the threshold that separates emerging civilizations from those capable of interstellar engineering. Whether Object Beta is here to evaluate, to archive, or to prepare for future engagement remains unknown. But its presence confirms one irreversible truth. The music of the spheres has a listener, and that listener is watching us from the gravitational high ground. If you want to follow every development as this story unfolds, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with this channel, because the next signal we detect could change everything again.